Hello Deepika. Hello guys. Thanks for joining today's live. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend. So so today we'll be following up with few of the basics of CSS, not with the advanced concepts, but few basics. But so far what we have learned is that CSS colors, where we try to implement the colors concept, how to display colors in textual format. Like if you want to print a color in blue color, just write a blue. If you want red, then go red, or else you can go with RGB format, HEX hexadecimal format, HSL, hue, saturation and lightness, RGBA, where A being the alpha, that will be the lightness, the opacity if you want a blur background or something like that. So transparency and non-transparency will be covered with the A concept. So we went and looked over here. If it's 0.5, then it's half the transparency, and so on. And then we learned about selectors. What is an ID selector, what is a class selector, what is a tag selector, what's the difference between each of them, and which one will have more priority compared to the other. And then we learned about CSS backgrounds. Let me close these things. In backgrounds, we got to know what a background color is, how to print the background color onto the screen. Next we saw how to print the image onto the screen, how you can do that, you know and then in the CSS styling, normally in HTML we go with image tag, but what if you want to do with the CSS, right? Then there is something called background image, and there is something called URL. Based on this, you get to display the image. And we went with the attachment, repeat, size, linear, and so on, right? Linear gradient as in the different shades that we had. So it was a wonderful concept. So once we were done with that, we went with the borders. We saw what are the different types of borders. If we wanted borders on all sides, what we did on just the left side, right side, bottom. If you want a rounded style, or if you want a circle. So all these things we have tried it out so far. So in today's concept, we will be covering more additional concepts like what is a margin, what is a padding, what is outline, CSS text format. Like in HTML we had a bold, italic, subscript, superscript, and all these things, like underline and so on. So in the similar way, how to do that in CSS, this is the concept. And after this, what are the different types of fonts and how you can implement the font styles. Along with that, what is a link. Normally in HTML we went with a tag, right, anchor tag, and CSS tables. So from today, in today's class, we will go from topic number 4 to topic number 10, and tomorrow's class we will go with 11, 12, 13, and if possible we'll go with 14. And once we were done with the tomorrow's class, we will conclude the CSS for now, and then we will continue the rest of the HTML tags that we are left. So let's go on with the properties first thing, and let me open up these PowerPoint slides so that it will be easy for us to understand. Yes, so welcome to the full stack development course, guys. It's a crash course and it's a day 8 where we'll be looking up all the topics that I have discussed previously. So these are the things that we are going to look at, like what is a margin, what's a padding, outline, text formatting, and so on. So yes, today's concept will be a bit of interesting, a bit of confusing, and a lot of things in your mind. It'll make you trigger a few more things, but once you understand the concept, everything else will be easy for you. So the first concept is CSS margin. So normally, what do we know about margin and what do we know about padding? These are the things we need to understand, right? So let's open up the file called, okay, let's open up the file over here, that is CSS underscore margins. Let's start the live server port equals to 9000. So let's copy this URL, open up in the Google Chrome so that it will be easy for us. I'll make sure to change my default browser to the Google Chrome, or else I had to go with these things. So today's class is margins, right? So let's open up the margins. Oh, let me open that in a new tab so it will be easy for me to close. So this is our setup for today. What is in our setup is that we have all these things. See, so compared to all these tags over here, what are these things over here? Let's open up the file and look into a file in detail. So it's nothing but in a division tag there are multiple paragraph tags. So each paragraph tag, this is a margin paragraph tag, so these all things are a paragraph tag with these text. So why I have implemented this technique is that I wanted to do in this way. I wanted to add styles to only the third paragraph compared to all the four paragraphs over here. I just want to add the effects, the styles only to the third paragraph itself. That's why margin top. So here I will apply margin top property, here I will apply margin right property, here I'll apply margin bottom property, and so on. So let's look into our file. So normally before we jump into our file, you can see the properties over here, right? By just looking at the output over here, you can see what all things I have done, what all effects I did here, right? The first thing is for the division, I created like a box shadow. You can see there is a box shadow behind it. Along with that, there is a background color, and inside that, see, between each paragraphs there is a spacing. It's like width is there over there. So you can see the same properties if you open the file over here. You have a background color, you have, see, you can see that it's not occupying the whole screen, it's just occupying the limited screen itself. That means there is a width. So if I increase the width to 600 pixels and save it, open it, see, it is increasing the width. So I thought 500 pixels would be the good thing, so we went with the 500 pixels. So the next thing is padding, margins. These are the concepts that we want to learn, so I will not explain about this. But you can see that all the text over here are at the center itself. Don't worry about the properties. So what we will do is that we will jump into the concepts. We will learn the concepts first, and then we will come back and discover what's there over here. So what is the syntax for margin? The first thing you need to know, right? What is the syntax for margin? So for margin, this is the syntax. So there are three ways to represent margins. So if you want margin to be separate, for example, let's take a paint. See, let's take paint and understand. That's what the first step states over there. So for example, let me take yes, this as the box, and sample text as my sample text over here. Okay, first let me take the text, and then what I'll do is I will add a small box. And for example, let's take that my website, this is my website page, like this. So what is margin? The gap outside the box over here. What is the gap that you're mentioning over there is called as a margins. So whatever outside the box, not inside the box. Remember this one concept, that margin is outside the box. So every text will have its border. Every text that you display, if you give a background color, it is represented with a box surrounding it. So normally if you take a text, let's say if there is a text called developer, then how will the box layout be? By default, the box layout will be like this, with not much of a gap, but still, yes, there will be a gap for sure, a little bit of gap, but you can see this is how the box will be divided. But it's our job as a developer to make it look more interesting. So what we do is we increase the gap of the box. That's alright, you increase the gap of the box, but what if my box starts from here itself? It doesn't look good, right? So what if I want to move my box a bit right compared to what it was over there? I need some property to move my box from left to right, right? So what I do is there is something called as margin. So if you want to move the box to the right side a little bit, so you say you need a gap on the left side, so that will be called as margin left. But what if you want the gap on the right side? So you say if I want the gap on the right side, I say margin right. But what if you want on the top? It's called margin top. And if you want it on the bottom, it's called as margin bottom. So this is how the margin is being represented as. So the first thing we want to know is margins, right? So what is the syntax of margin? So what is the syntax of margin? So margin is represented like this, margin, and you see you have these properties called margin, margin bottom, margin left, margin right, margin top. So if I want a gap on the left side, what I say is I want the margin on the left side. And how much margin you want? You can mention that in the various dimensions. So dimensions such as pixels, millimeters, centimeters, and so on. So for example, I want my box to move like 10 pixels to right. So I'll say 10 pixels, and then my box will move a bit right. You can see, let's try to implement that onto the screen over here. So okay, let's go with margin top as the first property. So instead of left, we write it top. It means I want some gap above the text which is displayed over there. So let's see, I want to apply styles over here. So what I do is I go with the inline technique that we learned previously. So that is nothing but style equals to, so where I want the margin to be on the top, right? Margin or gin hyphen top. How much margin I want? I want to move that a bit like 10 pixels below, so I'll say 10 pixels. Let's save it and let's open it over here. Okay, let's say 100 pixels. Now you see, right? The why is it 10 pixels? It wasn't moving because by default the gap was 10 pixels, so it wasn't moving a bit. I mean, it doesn't show that much of effect. But if it's 100 pixels, you can see that only this block has moved down compared to all the other things. It's because of the inline CSS technique that we have learned. So now you know, right? See, the whole box was like this before. Let's go and remove this style property and let's see what it was. It was over here, but the gap that you can see, it is applying outside the box, not within the box. Let me paste it back. Let's save it. You see, the box is applying outside this border, outside this borderline which is over here. So that means the margin is outside the box, and the other concept that we learn in future will be inside the box. So now we know how to add a space above the box by using a property called as margin top. Now let's try the similar property. So we'll say style equals to, I want margin on the right side, margin hyphen right. How much margin I want? For example, let's go with 50 pixels. I'll say I want 50 pixels from the right side, and you can see outside the box my box moved like 50 pixels to the left. It doesn't mean that, you know, you can say that the length of the box is this much, if it moves it should go outside the border. No, because we have mentioned that overall properties along with the box size and the margin property whatever you give, the whole size should be the size of the box which is above. So it will know your box will not move outside the border, but it will stay within that. And you can see that there is a gap right side the margin property which is based over here. Now let's go and try to apply margin bottom. So yes, as you guys guessed it, it's the truth. If you try margin bottom, there will be a space beneath this one. It doesn't mean that this will go above. This will be there the same, but there will be a gap beneath it. So margin bottom, so style equals to margin bottom. So how much you want? For example, let's go with 100 pixels, and you see it's there in the same position. The gap above that, the beside that, it's still the same, but you can see there is a gap beneath it. It's saying that whatever margin you give, the position of that will be there itself, but depending upon where you're providing the margin, there will be the changes itself. If you're providing the change on the top, then there will be no effect on the left and right and bottom no matter what. But if you want to try it on the left side, you can see that only the left side changes, but top, right and bottom will remain the same. So now that you know about the margin bottom, let's go try the margin left. So it's easy, right? So style margin left. How much I want margin? Let's go with like 30 pixels. Easy, right? And you can see it moved like 30 pixels to the right. So it's saying that there is a gap. I want a gap on the left side of this box, so margin left. Now what if I want margin all the sides? I cannot go and write margin left 10 pixels, margin right 20 pixels, margin bottom 50 pixels, margin top 100 pixels. It's like it becomes a big piece of code, right? Just by writing that. So over there, for that to be covered, there is a syntax called as margin. So this is this. Just can you give me a moment? Yes, sorry for the interruption, but yes, now that you know about the margin concept, how to do that, there is a shortcut. What is a shortcut? There is two ways to represent the margin as well. What is it? If you want the margin, so yes, for example, let's go and analyze it. Let's go with the syntax. So for example, the style equals to margin is the shortcut. So there are three ways to represent this shortcut. The first thing is to manually write what is the gap of each side. For example, I want 10 pixels on one side, 20 pixels on other side, 50 pixels on other side, and 100 pixels on other side. If I not with the 20 pixels, let's go with like 200 pixels and save it. Let's go have a look. Now you can see there is a difference over here. There is one gap separate, there is another gap separate, separate. Let's try to reduce one thing a bit and see. If we say for example I want it as 20 pixels, which one is changing? Yes, the right side is changing, right? So the margin is represented in a clockwise direction. So the second parameter is nothing but on the right. So let's go with the first parameter. Let's add two more zeros and see what's there. And you see the top part is having the effect. So that means now you can see it, right? So this means that the first parameter in the shortcut is represents the top. The second parameter in the shortcut represents the right. So it's going in the clockwise direction. Same goes with the third parameter. If I go with the 500 pixels, you can see the bottom, there is a lot of gap. And if you change the left side, for example 300 pixels, you can see difference, right? So it's as simple as it is. So the first property is for the top, the second will be right, the third will be for bottom, the fourth will be for left. So this is one way of representing it. But what if you say that for left and right I want equal gap, for top and bottom I want equal gap? What do you do? The first one will be like, for example, we say 50 pixels for top, the next one will be 100 pixels for right, for bottom I want another 50 pixels, and for left I want 100 pixels. I got it properly aligned over here. But you can see that if you're having the values of top and bottom same, left and right is same, then what you do is you can go with the second technique, where in the second technique you see y-axis and x-axis. The first one being the y-axis. Let's go and analyze it. We say for I want 50 pixels by 100 pixels as the margin. Let's save it and let's look it over here. You see the output is same. The left and right are having the equal gap. Let's go and increase this for like 300 pixels. And you see the first one represents the y-axis, so the top will be 300 pixels, the bottom will be 300 pixels, whereas on the left and right side I'm saying I want 100 pixels gap, so you get 100 pixels on the left, 100 pixels on the right. So this is the second way of representing if the y-axis are having equal margins and x-axis are having equal margins. But there is another scenario. What if I need equal margins on all the sides? Yes, you can do that. If I want equal margins, that is, for example, if I want 50 pixels on all the sides, then you see, just write the number of pixels that you want equally divided on the each of the side. So now you'll get 50 pixels on the left, on the right, on the top, and on the bottom itself. So these are the three ways to represent the margin. So yes, we have already done these things. I'm sorry, I need to use this, I need to look at the slides, but yes, we had covered all these things. So it's like I said, try using the inline CSS, and we have already done that using the inline CSS. So do you guys have any queries? And if you have any queries, please do post them in the comments in the live chat, so that if whenever I get this slide on, I will look into the comment section, and if there are any comments regarding the questions or anything, I will make sure to get back to you guys and solve them right away. So now that we know about what margin is, the CSS padding will be the same, but only difference is that margin is like outside the box, whereas padding is inside the box. But all the other properties, like you just replace the margin with padding, that's it. Just like you have margin top, margin left, margin right, margin bottom, you have padding top, padding left, padding right, and padding bottom. So the dimensions are still the same, but let's go and discover that thing over there. It'll be easy for us. So let's open the paddings concept. So you can see that the layout is still the same, but the text will be changing over there. Let's open the CSS padding. So yes, the styles are still the same, but the only thing is you want to see the effects, right? So only if you have a box, then only you will understand while what's going on with the padding, how much padding we add and how much we get it. Only if you look at the live example, then only you will understand the concept. Now, as the same thing that we have tried earlier, where only the third paragraph we are trying to add the styles. So here we'll try to add padding on the top side. So what is it? How to add that one? So to do that, you say padding. So I want top, right? So for padding, for top, see, let's go and look it over here. For example, if you want the padding side, you go and type padding, and you can see padding top, padding bottom, padding left, padding right, padding top, and padding, where padding is being the shortcut thing for all these things. Right, let's say I want a padding top of 20 pixels. Save it. Let's open up over here. You can see that the space whatever you're getting over here is within the box, and the box size have already increased. So this is like a cheat code, you know. If you want to increase the size of the box, what you can do is you can either increase the padding or change the width of the padding, width of the property, whatever it is. For example, if it is like small thing, if you change the width to 800 pixels, the width of the box will increase. But what if you add the padding? Even the width will increase, right, depending upon the font. So it's still the same. You can try these two techniques, whatever it is, but it is simple to understand once you get all the concepts. So this is the padding. Now that we know about padding, let's go and add padding to the right and see what happens. Style equals to padding. Well, now I'm having padding on the right, so I say padding right. How much I want padding right? I want 50 pixels. And you see the font whatever is over here has drifted to the left side. This means that the space has been added, 50 pixel space has been added within this box. That's why your font has moved to the left side. But without the style, you can see the padding is over here. But what if I add a padding over here? It moved, right? That's it. So now let's go with the padding bottom. If I want to get a space on the bottom of the text, so I say style padding bottom of 50 pixels. Oops, control Z, save, yes. And you can see there is a gap beneath it. You can see that you will be having a doubt, a small doubt. It feels as if my text has moved up, but the gap hasn't been added. No, that's wrong, because see, there is no space above this padding word itself. Everything is like almost nearby the top border. So this is as it is. So now that you know what a padding bottom is, let's go and look at what a padding left is. It's the same thing as a padding right, where we had a gap on the right side of the text. Now we'll have gap on the left side of the text. I want, for example, 50 pixels. See, my text has been drifted to the right side, meaning that there is a gap added to the left side of the text. Now what if I want to add padding on all sides? It's easy, right? Just like the margin concept, where the first parameter will be for the top, second parameter will be for the right, third will be for the bottom, fourth will be for the left. Same as the margin, will go with style padding. So first will be for the top, right? For top I want like 20 pixels space. For the right I want 40 pixels, for the bottom I want 50 pixels, and for left I want 100 pixels. See, so with this we know how to add padding as well. So it's similar concept to that of the margin regarding the properties, but the effects are, one is outside the box and one is inside the box. So most of the people do get confused with this thing. The second way of representing it is, yes, the first one will be the y-axis. Let's go with y-axis. I want 50 pixels, and on x-axis I want 100 pixels. Let's save it and see. See, you got a space of 100 pixels on the left side and on the right side, whereas you get a 50 pixel space on the top and bottom. Now that you know this thing, what if I want the space, equal space around the whole text? So just one thing, you go with 50 pixels for example. If I want 50 pixels around the text, then I just add a 50 pixels and I get a 50 pixels. So that's it. So if you want to add a single thing, single spacing around the text, then you do it like this. If you want to give a different spacing, then you can go with the first way of representing in the shortcut, that is on the top, on the right, on the bottom, and on the left. So yes, I'm sorry once again, I didn't look at this slide, but I directly jumped into the practicals. So it's as it says, we tried with the inline CSS styling, and we tried to add all the padding concepts and the different ways to represent padding. Along with that, we also saw the shortcuts and 3 ways of representing these shortcuts onto the screen. Now that we know about the paddings and margins, do you have any doubts? So apart from this Binod meme going on, if you have any doubts, then please do let me know, and when this slide comes up, I will make sure to solve all the queries. Hoping that there are no more queries at the moment, let's jump to the next concept. Yes, so now that we know what this is, he's saying that let's try to create a style to a button. Hmm. Okay. So he's saying that create a button with a name called register. So I created a button with a button tag. So he's saying that I need a background color, I need a color, border, padding, margin, border radius, and so on. So what I'll do is, for this button I will say jobless developer as the text of the button. So where is the button? On the top? Yes, I have the button over here. Now what he is saying is that try to add these properties so that you get to understand the border padding as well. So the first thing what I wanted to do is I will create something called ID. I say my button, and let's add styles to my button. So if it's an ID over here, so I'll go with hash my button. What I want the properties as. So first thing, I want the background color to be blue violet, so I'll go with the background color property and I'll say I need it as a blue violet. The second concept is to add a color as a white, so color white. Yes. So the third thing is padding, margin, and border radius. So see, now I have this button. It's a clickable button, but I want a space within this, right? So the font looks a different if there is no spacing. So I'll say padding. If I want like a 20 pixels padding all around. Oh, that's weird, right? I'll go with 15 pixels. 10 pixels looks good. But what if the first one, what if I want to represent in different way? What if I want more gap just on the right and left? The top and bottom is alright for me. Then what I do is, the first one will be the top and bottom, which is nothing but y-axis. The second one will be the x-axis. So I'll say I want a 25 pixels gap. So yes, now the button looks good. Now I want the button to move a bit right. It's too much on the left, so I'll say margin. So I want like a 50 pixels. Ah, but what if I want the top to move a bit down? So I'll go with 100 pixels. Oh, yes, it's, if I zoom out, I'm getting a proper thing, right? So yes, it's 2 down, so I'll say I don't want 100 pixels, I'll go with 50 pixels itself. Yes, okay, but on the left side I want it to be more right. So what I'll say is that there is a second way of representing. The top and bottom is all right for me, but left and right I want more space. So what I do is, first one will be the y-axis, second one will be x-axis. So I'll say I want it as 100 pixels, and there you go, the button has been moved. But what if you want space only on the left? You can do it easy, right? You'll say margin dash left. I want left to be just 100 pixels as it is. But if you don't want that, if you want it as it is, it was before, go with the margin property, and there you go. Now that you know about this thing, is there anything else? I want to add a border radius. I want to add this button to look more interesting. If you think the curved buttons are interesting, then you can go with the curved buttons using something called as border radius. Want the border radius to be, for example, 50 pixels. It's good for me. It's good to go for me, right? This button looks good. So this is the way to add up margins and paddings. Now that you guys understand what a margin and padding is and how to add a button depending upon whatever the scenario is, we will go and look to the next concept called as outline. So outline is same as the border, but it's like the outer part of the border. So if you want to understand the concept, let's go and look at over here. So for example, if you're having a text, so what will be is that for this text you will have, for example, if we give a padding for this text, what will happen? There will be a gap outside this text, right? And inside the box you'll have a gap. But what if you give a border to it? For example, I want the border of this one to be red in color. What do you say? Then you get a border over here outside this thing. And what if you have an outline? So if there is an outline, then what happens is that you will have another thing outside this border represented like this. So in order for you to understand this oops, let me zoom that out a bit. So this is how it will be represented as. So the first one will be just the box that you know. The second one will be the border of the box if you want to add a border. If you want the border to be like a single line or a dashed or dotted, whatever it is, depending upon your client's requirement. Outside the border there is something called outline, and let's look and let's try to implement that onto the screen. So let's close this file and let's open something called CSS outline, fresh document, neat and clean document. So yes, you need to know the properties of this one, just like the border. As the first line states, it's same as the border. So for border, what did we have as the properties? So for border, what do we have properties? First thing, what is the width of the border that I want? For example, I wanted a 20 pixels width, so that will be the first property, being what is the size width of the border. The second one will be the style. The first one will be the width, the second one will be the style. If you want a straight line, you want a dotted line, you want a equals to symbols, or whatever it is, you want a double line, you want a whatever, dotted lines, whatever it is. So it's a style of the border. The third one will be the color of the border. This is the syntax that you need to follow. Same as the border, there is something called outline. Outline will still have the same properties. one will be the width, the second one will be the style, the third one will be the color. These are the three things that you need to know. Yes, so let's go and try out with this example which is over here. So as you know, that is nothing but, let's close this file, let's open up the CSS outline. Yes, you can see that there is nothing provided over here rather than a simple paragraph. Where's the output? Yes. So now let's try to add these things. So for the paragraph, I wanted to add few basic things. First thing is I wanted the background color to be light salmon. So let's go and add a background color to be light salmon. So it is for the single paragraph which is in my whole website. So I will directly go with the tag way of selection. That is, first I need to open the style tag. Within the style tag, I will say for the P, for all my paragraphs I want this style to be there. So what style you want? The first one, I want the background color as light salmon, so I'll say background color as light salmon. Right, okay, let's go back and see. Okay, I have a background color as light salmon. The second thing, I guess it's padding. Okay, I want a center to be at the center. I mean the text to be at the center. See, the text is on the left side. So how do you do that? How do you make the text to be at the center? Easy, right? Text alignment. So you say I want the text alignment. What is it? I want it to be at the center. Let's save it. Let's look it over there. You see the text is at the center. The next thing you need to know is I want a width of 500 pixels. It's occupying the whole browser width. So I just want it to be limited itself. So I'll say I want a width to be like 500 pixels. Save it, and yes, there you go. The width is of 500 pixels. The next thing is I want to change the font family. So I will just write down these basic concepts. Don't worry about these things because we will discover about each and every property in detail in today's class itself. So it's font family. For example, let's go with Comic Sans Serif and let's see the font has been changed. Now what else I am trying to do? I want to increase the font size to 50 pixels. So we can directly say that I want my font size to be 50 pixels. Yes, this is my default layout, and for this layout I want you guys to understand what each and every concepts are. So don't worry about this layout. It's just the layout that I wanted to give an example for. So because if you understand with the proper layout, then only you will know what each concepts are. So now that we know about these basic things that we have already discussed in the previous classes, let's jump on to the actual practical stuff that we need to know in order to understand the outline, borders, margins and all these concepts. So I've been writing over here that let's add a padding of 25 pixels. It's because the font, it's a bit different. I want a gap between the box and the font. So I'll say I want the padding to be 25 pixels. So okay, let's add a padding. For example, 25 pixels. And you see there is a nice gap inside the box. Now it's looking good. But what's the next property that I want? Let's add a border. Let's add the outline and see the difference between the border and outline. So the border, what we used to do is, first property of border is what is the size of the border, what is the width of the border. For example, let me go with 5 pixels and let's go with which type, which style of the border you want, and go with the coral color. Save it. Let's go back. Oh, 5 pixels looks very small, so what I do is I'll go with 50 pixels so that you can get to know properly. 50 pixels is too big, so let's go with 25 pixels. Okay, 25 looks good for me. To understand this concept, 25 looks good for me. But in real life, 25 is worst. Don't go with 25, guys. That's my humble suggestion. So yes, now that you know this is a border, how did you get a border and where is the border located at? Control X, Control S, and you see this is the default layout, and for this I want to add a border. So let's add a border, and once we add a border, we got a proper border. Now what we do is we add outline as well. I want, for example, the same 25 pixels outline. I want it as a solid, and the third color is, let's go with orange red. Oops. Now you can see this, right? This is the margin. Sorry. This is the basic default layout that we had previously. The next thing that we are having is the border. Outside the border, but it's just like the border, but it's outside the border, there is something called outline. So these are the basic differences that you need to always understand. Now that we know about this thing, what we do is, I want this to be at the center, so it's easy, right? So I want it to move a bit right side, so I'll say margin. On the left side I need a gap, so I will say 50 pixels gap on the left, and there you go, it's over there. Now it's good for me. It looks like a proper design or some layout, but still, now that you know what outline is and what a border is, you need to know the basic difference, then only you can try these things. So do you guys have any queries so far? I mean, if you have any queries, then please do type in the live chat, and I will make sure to come back to you guys whenever this slide comes up. So assuming that there are no more doubts, let's jump on to the next concept, that is CSS text formatting. So in HTML text formatting, what we have? Something like bold, italic, underline, strike, superscript, subscript, and so on, right? So we need to make sure we try that using the CSS as well. For CSS, normally for HTML, these things are like different decorations, right? For normal text to be converted it as a bold, to convert it as italic or underline, these are like decorating the text. But for CSS, we have so many things like color, alignment, decoration, transform, indent, spacing between each letter, spacing between each word, spacing between each line, and also the direction where you want it to go from the right to left or left to right. It's amazing, right? There are a lot of properties just in CSS alone. So let's try them out. It's as said, let's open the 07 CSS text format. So let's close that and open the CSS text format. So it's plain, and yes, let's close this and open it over here as well. So let's try as it is over here. So it's being said that create a division first, and inside that division create a paragraph with lorem 60. So what we do is we create a div. First thing, let's try to add a comment section so that we get to know what topic we are implementing here. So the first topic will be CSS color. So yes, as said, create a division with a paragraph tag with a lorem 60. That's nice. Save it. Let's look into the screen over here. Wow. So looking at this thing, what else you can see? You can see that the font which is being displayed over here, it's not the classic font, right? It's something different over here. You can see that the background color is light salmon. You can see there is a box shadow there. You can see there's a space outside the box, there is a space within the box, which is nothing but this is margin, and this is padding within the box. Along with that, what else you can see? Our rounded borders. And if you go and look into the properties, yes, it's still the same. First will be the different font, second one will be the background color, padding, margin, size has been increased, border radius, and box shadow. So you guys did an amazing job just by guessing what all properties we had over there. So the first property that we are going to look at is called as color property. What if you want to change the color to white, or what if you want to change the color to blue, whatever it is? How do you do that? It's easy, right? Rather here we will just say that, or else we'll say for paragraph I want, what do you want? The color property. what do you want the color to be? I don't want my color to be black, I want my color to be white. Okay, no worries, just type as white, save it, go back, and there you go, the white text over there. So just like the text, just like adding a bold tag, just like transforming the text into italic, whatever you do it over there, these are the properties that we have over here. The first being changing the color of the font. So there are so many ways. In the last class we have learned so many ways to represent the color, so many ways to display color onto the screen. So this is the first technique. So the first property of font is CSS colors. Let's go with the second property, alignment. So what's creating over there is that he said create a division with the h1 tag and write some random text over there with the inline CSS properties. I want the text to be at the left or right or center, whatever it is. Where do you want whatever it is? So as he said, let's create a division. So you might be assuming or wondering why I'm creating a division all the time, why I'm not creating a direct h1 tag. It's because I have added all the styles to the division alone. If I don't create something like this, then there will be no styles at all. If I just write h1 rather than creating a division, for example, if I say h1 as a jobless developer, save it, let me go back, you see there is nothing onto the screen. But what if I want styles to be applied as well? You need a proper layout, proper styles, right? So for that to happen, what I did was I created a division, I added all the properties to the division so that whatever I do will be applied to everything over there. See, now you see, if I added a division, all these things has come over there. This is the second concept in this file that we are learning. So let's go with the comment tag and let's say, what is this? This is text concept. Let's give a proper spacing, proper enters. Let's zoom it so that you guys can understand. So this is my proper layout. No changes, right? But I want my text is on the left side. What if I want the text jobless developer to be on the right side? So there is a property called text align, and where you want the text to be, on the center, on the right side, or on the left side. But you guys know that for left side you don't have to write left, because by default it is representing on the left side itself. So by default the text is being printed onto the screen on left side itself, so you don't have to write left. So if you want the font to be on the right side, you just type in right, save, and you can see the font has jumped from left side to right side. But what if you want the font to be on the center of the screen? Easy, right? Just replace the right with center, save it, and that's it. So this is called as alignment. Where do you want the text to be? Where do you want the text to be aligned at? You want it to be on the left side, then you don't need to write this property at all. Or let's go with, as we are discussing this property, let's go and write left, save it, and you see it's on the left side. But what if I remove this property? It's still the same, right? That's why I said if it is on the left side, then you don't have to mention the property tag, because it's by default on the left side. So now that you know what a align property is, let's go and jump over to the next property, which is called as a decoration. So what do? Is we create a comment, text decoration. So what did we mention over there? It's being said that let's create an anchor tag with a random name, and I want to remove the underline to the link. Let's go and look it over there. So the first thing, let's not create any division, but instead directly we'll do it in this way. So let's create an anchor tag with something called as jobless developer. So you got a link over here. There is no space on the bottom. Let's add a space. How do you add a space? Now you know about the margins, so it will be easy for you. On the body, I want a gap on the bottom side. So what I do, I say margin bottom, how much I want. For example, I'll go with 500 pixels, save it, and you see I got a space on the bottom of this one. It's good, right? So yes, now that you know about this thing, for this text, by default there is a decoration. So what is the decoration you can see? What is the decoration that you can spot for this text? You can see the link, the color is blue in color, and you can see there is an underline. If you click on this link, you see it's changing the color, and if I click on this and if I don't release the click button, then you can see that it's red in color. After I release, it's changing the color. See, this is what is the decoration. So what if I want to remove the underline link? This is called decoration. I want to remove this decoration, this underline. So I'll say space style text hyphen decoration. I want it to be none. And you see, this is still a link. If I click, it's going to some page. It's going to the same page because it's having hash on the end. It's being said that it's on the different page. Yes, but still you can see that there is no underline now. But if you say I want underline, for example, if there is no text at all, so there is something called underline. Just like the alignment, if you say aligned on the left side, or if you don't say aligned on the left, but it's still the same. So for the decoration, if there is no underline, or if you write underline, it's still the same. What if I want this line to be on the top of this one, right? So there is something called as overline. So always I want to share these things. I will share these files with you guys so that you guys can look at all the properties over here. If you are confused at any moment, then you can go back to the developer side, and over there you can get to know about all these things. So there is something called as overline. If I write it as overline, you see the line is above this word, it's not beneath this word. This is called as text decoration. There is something called as text transform. So if you want to convert the text, whole text, to be lowercase, or if you want the whole text to be uppercase, or if you want the whole text to be capitalized as in the first letter of every word will be in uppercase and the whole word will be in the lowercase. So what if you want something like that? So let's look into this one. So for example, yep, sorry for the interruption. Let's continue with this one. So if what if I want the whole thing to be in uppercase or whole thing to be lowercase. It's something different, right? Rather than typing everything in uppercase and everything in lowercase, what if you want to change that? So there is something called text transform. So what we do is we try to create a division. We'll go with this one. We'll say text transform. Let me create a division with a paragraph lorem 60. Let me save that. So you can see it over here that the first letter is uppercase, whereas everything else is lowercase, depending upon the proper grammatical structure irrespective to that. So what if I want everything to be in uppercase? So there is something called style equals to text transform. So see, these are the many things that I wanted to explain. The first thing being uppercase. If I say it as uppercase, everything is uppercase, nothing is in lowercase. But what if I want in a lowercase? This is lowercase. See, even the first character over there is lowercase. What is I want the first character to be uppercase for all the word? There is something called as capitalize. So the first letter for whole word is uppercase, and remaining else will be in lowercase. So this is something called as text transform. The next concept is called text indent. So for example, if you look at few of the textbooks or novels, you can see that this text, whatever is there, will start a bit right side. There'll be a gap on the left of this text. So that's called as a text indent. So if you want that to happen, let's copy this one. It's still the same thing, but there is nothing difference apart from this. I don't want this style to be there, but instead of that, so text indent, right? So I say text indent. For example, I say 80 pixels. See, compared to this text and this text over here, it's starting with a gap on the left side. So this is called as indentation. So these are the few basic concepts. So there are a lot of concepts as well. So letter spacing. What if you want gap between each letter? So let's try that. So we say letter spacing. For example, I say letter spacing to be like 5 pixels. See, there is a gap between each letter, right? So what if you want a space between each word instead of each letter? That is called as word spacing. How do you do that? It's simple. Instead of letter, it's word. Let's go with 10 pixels. You see, there is gap between each word. So this is how it is being represented as. So let's go with the next property called as line height. So line height is nothing but the space between each lines. So let's copy this, Control D. I want a line height of to be like 20 pixels. It's too less, right? I want it to be 50 pixels. Let's go with 50. Yes, it's the 50 pixels over there. See, you get a space between each line. So these are the basic concepts itself. So everything related to text comes under the text formatting concept. So text direction. So text direction. Normally, if you see at the output, the text starts from here on the left side. That's why all the left side. text shadow to be, oops. So what are the parameters of text shadow? The first parameter being how much it should be on the x-axis, how much it should be on the y-axis. For example, if I say I would like around 2 pixels x-axis and 5 pixels on the right y-axis, and then I want a width, what's a blur spread movement, I want like a 10 pixels. And what is the color you want? I want the color to be black. You see, each word will have a shadow. So this is called as a 0 10 pixels black, like the one we always go. You can add the same thing. It will add like a shine effect. If you add a 0 0 10 pixels, it will add shine effect. So these are like the basic properties. And now that we get to know about all these properties, do you guys have any queries so far? So if you have any queries, then please don't hesitate to type in your queries at any moment, and I will make sure to have a look at them and solve them right away when this slide comes up. So assuming that you guys don't have any queries so far, so what we do is we go and jump with the next concept called as a CSS fonts. So these are the basic fonts that have already been displayed on the screen. Like there are few font families like serif, sans serif, monospaced, and cursive are 4 different categories of fonts that have been displayed and are being used for now. So normally if you take a software such as Word or PowerPoint, if you want to change the font, what you will do? You will normally go to the drop down and you will select which font you want to display it onto the screen, right? So whereas what if you want to do that onto the browser? You can directly go, for example, if you want to do that onto the browser, normally in the settings, and if you search for font, there is something called customize font over here. So you can see that by default some random font, this font is being displayed, but I want a different standard font to be displayed. I can select whatever font I want to be displayed onto my screen. It's my wish. But this, whatever changes I do, the changes will be there just to my screen itself. It will not have impact onto my client screen. But if I want to do this same effect, if I want the font to be the same way onto my client screen, then what should I do? There is a way in which you can represent the font onto the screen, the way to print the font onto the screen. So let's open the CSS fonts. Yes, see, and where do you find the local fonts? Because on the PowerPoint or MS Word, it gets the font from the local fonts, right? So if you go to might have or might not have these things installed in their PC. So if you want that to be displayed onto the screen, then what we need to do is see, for example, these things such as Arial, Georgia, Lucida, these are the local fonts. And the syntax to represent the font onto the screen is like this. You say font family, what is the name of font that you want to display onto the screen, and which family does it belongs to. These are the parameters. So 1 minute. Okay, so yes, what if you want to print Arial font? So there is something called ID Arial. So let's try to add the effects over here itself. So we'll say hash Arial. Oh, just to give me a moment, I'll be back. Sorry for the disturbance. Sorry for the disturbance. Yes, so here's the slide. So what's happening over here is that for Arial there is something called the font name is Arial and the family belongs to is called sans serif. Same goes with Georgia and Lucida console. So let's try to print this onto the screen. So the first thing, all these fonts are same, right? It's because it's the by default font that I want to display it onto my browser. So what I do is I want the first text which is over here, I want that to have an Arial font. So I'll say font family to be Arial comma sans serif. Let's save it. Let's go back over there and you can see that it's Arial over there. Now what if I want it as a Georgia? So there is another thing called Georgia. So let's go, let's say as it is an ID, let's go Georgia. I want the font family to be Georgia and Georgia belongs to sans serif. And you see this is Georgia. What if I want Lucida console? Then let's go hash Lucida. I want the font family to be Lucida console and it belongs to sans serif as well. See, the fonts has been changed. What if I want a font from Google? Something different, right? What if I want a font from Google? Then what if I'll say I'll go to Google font, click on the link. Let's go to that slide. I see if I want to font from Google, first search for Google fonts and select the font you want to display it onto the screen. This is good, right? See, here for example, if I say this style is good, the bottommost one is good for me, or else this one is good for me, I'll say select this style. When I say select this style and look at the embed rather than downloading the font over there, there are two things that I get. The first one will be in the link and the second one will be how to represent that onto the website. So I'll say what I do is there are two steps for me here. First I will copy this link and go to my file over there. Beneath this title or anywhere in the head section I will put this link over there, and in order to use this type of text in this type of style for my font, I'll copy this, and for which thing I need to apply, I want to apply that for something called as Google. So I'll say hash Google. For this I want the font family to be Lemonada. Save it and let's go back over here. You see I get that font. It's amazing, right? It's easy and it's simple. Whatever fonts you want, you do it in that way. But what if you want a lot of fonts? I want this font along with that, I want this font. Select this style, select this style, select this style. See, I'm selecting so many styles. Normally if you follow the previous approach, I need to have like 1 2 3 4 5 6 of the styles along with the previous one, so there are 7 styles, so I need to have 7 link tags. But instead of 7 link tags, there is just one link tag, and depending upon which font you want to use it, you can use that in your own way. So it's as simple as it is. So whatever font you want to, you can directly do that. So let's go on to the next quiz. So do you guys have any queries so far? Now that we know how to print the font from the local and also how to get the font from the Google, it concludes everything, right, related to font. If you want a good font, then you can directly search on the Google, you can get that and you can display it onto the screen. It's as simple as it is. You don't need to create your own fonts for that. So assuming that there are no more queries so far, let's go on to the next thing. What if you have 15 fonts? I just showed you what it was, right? What if I had 7 different fonts? Rather than having so many link tags, but I just have a single link tag over there. It's as simple and as fast as it is. Custom font. So custom font is like a CSS homework for you. So what I want you guys to do in this custom font is that please take a screenshot of this file, so this screen. So I want you guys to do something like add a font family with all the properties that you know, such as padding, margins, borders, outlines, whatever, decoration, different font, different styles, different colors, different background colors, whatever it is, italic, bold, capitalized, uppercase, lowercase, whatever it is. Try to add all the properties that you can and make that thing look really good compared to what it all the other things are over here. Try to make something which is really good, and if possible try to send us that screenshot, and we will try to post that onto the website as well on our page. It will be a wonderful way to showcase what all you guys are trying to do. So now that we know about this, do you guys have any queries? I guess it's not so complicated. Let's go on to a next topic, which is called as CSS links. Let's close this. Let's open up the links. So yes, what I will do is that in today's concept, in today's class, I will just go with the links topic itself. In tomorrow's class, I will go from the tables because it's already 5:50 and links topic will take a lot of time, around 10 minutes. So I'll make sure to cover everything on time. But let's close this. Let's try to open CSS tables. Oops, not tables, CSS links. Yes, I have a nice link, Google. So in HTML, as we have discussed earlier, how to display a link onto the screen? It's easy using the anchor tag, which is nothing but A. And what are the default styles that have been mentioned over there? The color is blue. There is an underline, and if I click on this, it goes red, and if I visit this one, it goes to violet, purple color. Yes, so you have all these properties over here, right? Inbuilt properties for CSS. But in CSS, what you can do, you can say that, see, when I'm clicking on this, it's becoming red color. What if I say I'm clicking on that, I want it as a black color, and when I visit it, it's going like a purple, right? Or purple or violet? Yes, it's going purple, but after visiting it, I want the color to be white. So all these effects, which are like not by default or not by default built-in things, what if I want to create everything by myself? What if I want to be the creator of the website? I want all styles to be my own. Then CSS comes into action. How do you do that? There is something called a colon link, hover, active, and visited. These are the things. If it is an unvisited link, what it is? By default, unvisited link is having a color called blue. What if I want the link to be green in color? So let's try to do that. For example, let's make it look as a button, right? It will be looking amazing if it's having a button. So for to have it as a button, what we do is we give a box shadow. Let's say 0 0 10 pixels black. I don't want the underline, so I'll say text decoration as none. I want a spacing within the box, so I'll say padding to be 20 pixels. It looks weird for me, right? So I'll say it looks still weird for me. Okay, the button looks good for me for now. So what if I want a border, I want like a 2 pixels border, a solid and a black. Okay, I have a proper border, but what if I want that to be a rounded button? Not too rounded. Border radius, for example, I want it as a stylish button, for example. Something different, right? Somewhat different. Okay, even if it doesn't look good, it's still alright for me as a sample thing. Let's say the first thing that we want to do is I want this, if it is unvisited, okay, create a, sorry for not opening this file before, change this to link, create a boundaries, border radius, remove the outline. If I want to remove the outline, then it's outline. Okay, remove the underline, change font to Arial. If you want to change font to Arial, how do you do that? You just add a font family, Arial. Okay, but I don't want Arial. This one looks good with the style that I have mentioned over there. And let's add padding. Yes, let's change the font size to 30 pixels. Okay, I want the normal link to be green, so these are the properties that I want. So what it is, if I want normal link to be green, so the first thing is, if I want normal link to be green, so what I want the background color to be green, for say which green, let's go with lime green. That's good, but the text doesn't look good, right? So I will say color as white, and text shadow as 003 pixels black. Okay, it's already been visited, so what we can do is, okay, the text is white. The second property that I want is, if I hover on it, I want the background color to be blue. Hover as in, if I move the cursor onto that button over there, I want the background color to be blue. It's not happening anything. So I'll say a colon hover, I want the background color to be blue. Let's go with this one. Okay, now that we know, if I'm hovering it onto the button over there, it's going blue. That's nice. If it's in active situation, I want it as a red. So active as in, while clicking on that, um, red looks a bit too dark for me, so what I do is I go with any light colors if that's there. So let's go with Indian red. Upon clicking it, see, it's going Indian red. Okay, and what else, if the link is visited, I want it to be black. So if I click it completely, so I just dragged it, so it is not a proper click. So a colon, so if it is visited, right, so if it is visited, I want the background color to be black. Nah, what I do is I go with a dim gray. Why do I want to go with a black color, right? Blue, green, if I click on that one, it'll go red. If I release the button, it'll go dim gray. Simple, right? So it's still like dim gray, but the change, the font has not been, the color has not been changed, so just the color white, right? So I just want the color white, save it. Yes, that's it. So these are the basic things that you need to know. the reason why it's not changing color now, it's because it has already visited this hash website, and this has already been stored in your cache. So if you want that to happen another, if you want to try it once again, go with one more hash, save it, that's it. But don't try to add more hashes, guys. It will make your website more look complicated. Doesn't want that to happen. So this is what is the concept. So the one thing is a colon link is nothing but by default how you want that to be. A colon hover is when you move the cursor onto that thing, the button, how do you want that to be. If it is clicked and not released, that is called as active, and if it is released, that means you open that website, it's called as visited. So these are the concepts that I wanted to teach for today, and in tomorrow's concept we'll start with the tables, and then we will continue with all the remaining CSS. Once we cover the tomorrow's class, we will jump back to HTML again in day after tomorrow, and then continue with most of the tags. So once we get to know the other remaining tags, we will also try to create another website. It will be interesting, guys, to understand. So I hope you guys had a great time. Oops. I hope you guys had a great time today. So that's it for today's videos, guys. 1 minute. Yes, there you go. Yeah, thanks for watching today's live videos, guys. It was amazing. Thanks for showing your support so far. So with today's class, we have covered a lot of HTML tags and a lot of CSS properties. It's been a wonderful journey with you guys. Thanks for your valuable support and your feedback. I will make sure to come more with a proper course structure. So when I get back tomorrow, let's try to cover a lot of concepts, and day after tomorrow's class, let's try to implement that live again. So thanks for watching today's videos, guys. I hope you had a great time, and if you have any doubts, then please don't hesitate to type that in the comments, and I'll make sure to give you a reply in the next class, or well, the class begins tomorrow at 4:30. If you guys like this video, then please do give a thumbs up, and if there is any feedback, proper positive or a negative feedback, if it's a negative feedback, then give a thumbs down button, and please do let me know where I can improve myself. Thank you for your support. Have a nice day.